Hey everybody, Paul from Better Chess here, and I'm going to talk about this next game, which is between Deep Swindle, myself, during a Sunday Blitz match on Lead Chess. So let's get right to it and talk about what happened here. So I am black in this game, and this is a loss. So I want to be fully transparent that I want to review my losses as well as my wins and be judicious about what I show when I record these videos. So the game starts e4, c5. I always play the Sicilian against white e4. So this is typical Sicilian castles. I'm sorry, takes c3. So now we're going into the Alapin variation or the c3 Sicilian, which I'm comfortable with. Uh, Many times, Deep Swindle and I play the Smith-Morra gambit where I take on c3, then knight c3 happens, and then we get into a Smith-Morra, different type of game, very tactical and aggressive. But this is calmer waters. So the common reply here, this is a bunch of them. I'm not going to go into deep theory here. It's just knight f6, hitting this weak e pawn and threatening to uh, take that. Okay, so he pushes e5. Smart. Only move I can go to really is knight to d5. So now it goes, he captures, and a lot of other moves to play here. I could play moves like e6 or even d6 are very common. In this game, I play d6, just trying to mix it up a little bit. And as you can see, my knight is hanging, so I see that, and I have to be careful. So he's going to play bishop c4, hitting the knight. And the book move here is just to play knight b6. It's a nice, comfortable idea, just kicking the bishop away, and then he plays bishop e3, and the game continues, maybe capturing and so on. But I felt, you know what, I'm going to do something a little different this time. I'm going to capture the pawn. It's another variation, perfectly legitimate, just not as common. He recaptures. Now I play e6, so I have a nice happy knight there. If he takes the knight, not necessarily the best move because I'll capture with the pawn, and then I'll have my b6, my c8 bishop will uh, have more scope. So he's probably not going to do that. All right, he castles. Now I play be7 on the way to complete my development. He plays somewhat interesting queen e2. I think it's a normal move, and the idea is he wants to swing his rook over and put pressure on my queen. So looking at that, I just castle. He plays, as expected, rook d1. Again, the idea is here to put pressure on the queen, on the knight. He might play knight c3 coming up, and all that has to be dealt with. So I play something a little differently here. So I play b6. This is uh, this is also theory. It's not as common as something like Queen C7, but it's a move. And now we're getting into the outer fringes of the C3 Sicilian here. So now he plays, not recommended, but he plays Knight C3. It's okay, but it allows me to capture with a tempo, which I do, right? Because now I'm, even though my queen is hanging, so is his queen. So I can capture too with check, and that's a problem. So he takes the knight, and you can see already he's starting to have some problems here. These are now weak, isolated pawns that are subject to attack. And yes, he's got a nice front e5 pawn that creates some issues on these squares, nice control. But I think for the most part, the position is roughly equal. There's not really any advantage either way. But I think I have my targets, and I think for playing the position, I think it's a little easier for black to play. But that's obviously just my opinion. Okay, so I play queen c7, obviously getting out of the way of the rook. And now he plays, I think he should play something like bishop d3, right? Playing back here, and he's creating pressure. He doesn't do that, though. He plays bishop b5. Not sure I quite understand why he's doing that. Probably to capture the knight. He doesn't want to have any pressure on the e5 pawn or something, and he wants to remove that. I'm not really sure. So, development is the king here, so I have to keep developing. Bishop b7. So now he plays bishop f4, and the idea here is to overprotect the e5 pawn, right? He's covering it with the bishop, the knight, and the queen, and he doesn't want to have any funny stuff going on here. So he's just making sure his pieces are developed and that he's not going to hang any pawns in the process. All right, now normal development. I play rook a d8. It might be a nuance, but probably rook fd8 might be a little more accurate, but it really doesn't matter. So I play rook a d8. And, I had some opening issues earlier on, but now I think for the most part we're in a peaceful middle game. The position is dead equal, and Deep Swindle decides to give a little luft for his king. Good move, right? When you're not really sure what to do, sometimes you just want to make slight improvements to your position. So h3 creates a little escape square for the king, and maybe even an escape square for any of these pieces if they need to go back there for whatever reason. So that's not a bad move. Okay, so now I say, okay, I'm going to trade wood here. Rook takes d1, rook to the file, he takes. I take back with the queen. And the reason I'm doing this is because I feel that these are good targets here. And the more pieces come off, the easier they're going to be corralled. Right? He's got sort of a bad bishop here on this square. It can move, but I feel like I have some targets, and that's the purpose of these moves. Now, what is the position equal? Yes, it's dead equal. There's no real advantage, but I feel like I'm going to get the advantage if I keep playing the way I am. Okay, so now he plays. Again, I like bishop d3, as I said before, kind of focusing on going here and then focusing on here, and he's having a nice scope for his bishop on that side of the board there, right in the middle. But he doesn't. He plays queen c4, which I'm going to say is dubious, and the reason for it obviously is to hit you know, hit this knight. It has to be defended. But this is a mistake because it gives me some activity actually. I get knight a5. All right, so it's hitting the queen. That's the first problem. But it's also unleashing this bishop too. Now this bishop diagonal is going to really be a problem. I'm going to maybe play queen d5, and it's uncomfortable for him now. I have also outposts for my bishop on c5 if I want it. So just with that one move, he is helping me expand my game and getting a better position. So black has a slight edge. Okay, he plays queen e2 back where he came from. I do my protection move of h6 to give myself a escape square for the king. Now he plays knight d4. Not a bad move. He's just trying to centralize his pieces. I'm still a little bit better here, but now I have another, tempo gathering move, queen d5. Again, threatening queen g2 mate. Indirectly hitting this bishop is not in any danger, but he's got to keep an eye on things, right? And other ideas like maybe bishop c5 are now coming in, where I'm going to start really raking the board here with the bishops and the queen and all my pieces converging in the center. So slight edge black for sure. He plays f3 to blunt the diagonal. Now you have to keep an eye on this. So as he plays f3, what becomes weak? Look at these squares all around the king. It's the first thing you should see when a player does that. So now I have moves like bishop c5, which seem pretty reasonable, or queen c5. I think queen c5 is a better move. What I did play is bishop c5. That was the move I played in the game. It's okay, but more direct is queen c5, hitting this target. Every move should be as precise as possible. All right, and that will be a slightly stronger move. All right, so I play bishop c5 to get on the diagonal, which is an alternative. He plays queen d3. Now right here, I could become a lot better and just take the a2 pawn. Just snare it and say, I'm up a pawn. And what are you going to do? Right? There's not a lot to really say for yourself in that position. But I'm a little worried about putting the queen offside. I was a little concerned about that. So I figured, you know what? Let me first do a a6, kick the bishop. It's not wrong, but it's not necessary. Is the point? It's nothing I should have really considered, but I did it anyway. I played a6. Okay. So bishop a4, idea bishop b3, hitting the queen. b5. Now he plays bishop back to c2. Idea now is he is threatening not necessarily mate, but pressure for sure on the h7 square. And if I move, after check, he picks up this pawn. So I got to be careful. So I play g6, which I think is correct. Realizing that that will hang a pawn. But I figured, yeah, he's going to hang a pawn. I mean, I'm going to hang a pawn, but so will he. He'll hang this more important pawn. So he takes it. I take on e5. So I always feel a center pawn is better than a wing pawn in this particular position. The downside for me is now his bishop has a little more scope. It can't go here quite yet, but this diagonal now is open for me and it's open for him as well. So double-edged. Okay, so white to play. I like bishop e3, sort of reconsolidating his pieces and awaiting future events. But he doesn't. He plays f4. That's a very questionable move here. And the reason why is, first off, you're opening up this diagonal again, which is a big, big problem. Secondly, he's trapping his bishop here. So now it has really no future. And so what I do, which it looks like a natural move, but it isn't really the strongest move, I play queen d5, just trying to get on this mate thread again, right? A much stronger move, which is winning actually, is this. Just queen e1, check. Where's he going to go? Right? If he goes, queen f1, I take on c3. And I'm hitting multiple pieces here. This is death, right? If he plays something like king h2, which is, fair, then I have queen f2. Again, threatening mate. Queen g3. I can take the knight on d4. If he captures back, I just take the bishop and I'm up a piece. That's it. And white can resign. Didn't see it. Okay. So he plays queen g3 now, trying to, again, protect that g2 mate problem. Once again, the a2 pawn is hanging, and it doesn't sound like a lot to take, but one of the things that's very important whenever you play chess is the transition from the middle game to the ending. And I have to understand that once pieces come off, I have to see the board after the pieces are exchanged. And not having that a2 pawn is going to give life to these guys right here, the a2, the b5 and a6 pawns. Very important. But don't do that. Instead, I take the centralized knight, feeling this is an annoying piece. Takes, queen takes d4, check. That's actually not as strong. I should have again taken the a2 pawn. That was probably a better idea. But yeah, I played d4, check. He goes over to h2, and I play this move, which is sort of inexplicable. The purpose of it is to trade off this good bishop. I don't want his bishop here, right? For some reason, it was annoying me, and I was worried about pressure. Uh, it doesn't make any sense at all. Just the idea of queen d5 is fine, but this is losing. If he takes it, right, and I take it back, queen c3, and I'm lost. Look at this. And he's also hitting this. That would be it. It's a blitz game, so wasn't seen. Anyway, he doesn't do that. He plays instead bishop b3, getting on a better diagonal. I'm better again now. It's like a back and forth game. So I take it immediately. I don't want him to have the two bishops. He takes back. Queen d3, trying to trade because I'm up a pawn here. Why not, roll these guys forward if I can? He does not take. He plays queen g5, and I'm very worried here. I get very worried about this threat of queen f6 to g7. It's a legitimate concern. However, this is the bigger threat I have. The minute he moves his queen, I'm mating him on g2. So that's, in essence, it's actually a pin. He cannot move his queen at all. He cannot go anywhere. Anywhere he goes, I'm gonna mate him. He can't even check me. If he goes queen d8, I just take his queen. So there's no moves he has right here in terms of queen movement. Okay, and I'm just probably a little better for sure. All right, so he plays h4, trying to break up things. Makes sense. Now this is where I should start my a5 move, but do not do that. I play instead queen d4, and again, I'm just really worried about ghosts. Worried about these squares. They're going to be problems covering the dark squares. So he pushes again. Now I just play, I think, a strong move, f6, hitting the queen. He's got to move back. I play king h7. He takes with check. I take back with the bishop, but that's a mistake because all I have to do is just take with the pieces hanging. And if he does something like this, I have bh7. That's fine. And if he goes here, makes it a queen over I take. He takes. Yeah, queen takes f4, and I'm up now 3 pawns, or 2 pawns rather. So this is getting worse and worse for him. But that was not going to happen. Instead, I take with the bishop, and now the game is equal again. Interesting. All right, f5. He's just trying to mix stuff up. I can't take. If I take with the bishop, he mates me on g7, right? Queen g7 is the threat. So it's not a bad move, actually. So now I got to double up these pawns. So now even this 2 pawn advantage is not looking very good because they're doubled pawns. And the fact that they're doubled makes them very difficult to move down the board. He knows that. So that's a good move. So he tries to get his queen on or bishop on a better diagonal. So he's going to play it back to f4. And again, a5 should be here, but instead I keep dilly-dallying with queen e4. You know, again, just trying to keep a hold of my of the light squares and watching for trouble. So he is now on the offensive. He plays queen h4 check, king g8. He can't take because I take his bishop with check. So now he plays g3 to secure his bishop. I play queen e2 check, king h3, and I miss a winning move here, which is bishop h5. That just wins on the spot. Nothing he can do to stop this. He can't take, obviously. So if he takes, which is suicidal, then I just go bishop g4, king h4, queen h2 check, king g5, and then queen h5 mate. Game over. Other ideas, if he plays like g4, it's still lost, right? Bishop g4, king g3, queen e1 check, and he's losing the queen. So it's game over. But instead I play queen h5, trying to trade. So basically I'm saying, all right, it's a draw. So he moves his king. I take. I'm up a pawn, 2 pawns rather, and I'm going to try and blitz it out, see what I can do. So now I'm finally a5, exclam, moving the passers. He's going after him. I keep pushing, trading. Now he's stopping activity. Good move, right? Opposite colored bishops, which are usually a draw. That's not a bad idea. King f7, king f3. And now we're starting to move. I'm trying to escort this pawn. He's getting closer. And I forget the fact that this f6 pawn is hanging. I gotta be careful here. And he sees that too. He takes it. King here. Now it's just a dead draw, right? There's nothing here. A3. He plays here. I should just capture this and call it a draw, but I play bishop h7. There's the desire to keep winning, keep the attack going if I can, squeeze as much as I can out of this position. Okay, he comes after me. He's like, all right, I'm gonna march my king up and grab the bishop and maybe queen my own pawn. I play king c2, trying to get to b1 with ideas of, marching my pawn in. All right, he plays king h6. Now this is getting complicated. I have to be careful. He's not allowing this h5 pawn to queen. So I play bishop g8, which is playable, but a better move, frankly, is something like f4. Watch. King takes, f3, king g6, f2, h6. f1 queen, h7, queen g2 check. And anyway, this is a draw. This is just a dead draw. All right, bishop g8. Now he plays king g7. Now I have only three moves that draw here. The first is to sacrifice the bishop back to h7. That's number one. The second move is to play f4, as I mentioned. It's probably the safest one. And the other move actually is a2. But unfortunately, I don't. I play the stupidest move that loses instantly. Bishop e6, which is now lost because now the pawn can roll in, and I can't stop it. So h6, f4, too late, h7, f3, h8 queen, and he's going to get there to stop me before I can do anything. King b1, and I just get mated. So it's a loss, but I think the important piece here is focus on what is happening in the game. We saw many times my inability, my refusal to play moves like a5, right? Even here, a5, a5, keep the majority moving. And the other thing I missed, which is another thematic idea, is I have pressure on this g2. There's not much he can do. So why I was playing moves like queen d4 and worrying about that really doesn't make any sense. So that's the lessons for today, right? Focus on your position, play the position, try not to make passive moves that don't do anything to help your game. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.